I lived in Brooklyn, East New York, Flatbush section. And yeah, just how I got started to become who I am was the girl that lived next door. Her grandmother lived next door to us. She was a model for Sears catalog for girls' clothes. So she tells my mother, hey, your son is pretty cute. I mean, I had a lot of hair when I was younger. Why don't you let him go and audition? Maybe he can make some extra money modeling boys' clothes for Sears catalog. So we went to New York City, my mother and I, and she told us where to go. And I went to see the receptionist. And the receptionist says, you here for modeling for boys' clothes? And I said, yes. Forget it, kid. Do yourself a favor. Go home. Forget this business. Your face is too round. Your ears are too big. You'll never make it in this business. So that was the receptionist. So Mom and I walked out. We went and had lunch, and we're heading back to the subway. And you only hear stories like this that maybe it happens in the movies. It happened to me. I got a tap on the shoulder walking on the street on Broadway, and we were up by 47th Street. And a woman taps me, I turn around, she goes, are you an actor? Yeah, I'm an actor. Follow me. So Mom and I followed this woman. She happened to be a theatrical agent, was so desperate to fulfill a part of a boy for a show, she exhausted all her resources. She resorted to going on the street and looking for a kid, and I'm the one that she saw. And she just tapped me on the shoulder, and matter of fact, I did the show, I got hired. It became the biggest TV miniseries when they first started doing TV miniseries, and the show was called Rich Man, Poor Man. It became a big movie, it was a miniseries, all that. I was in the stage version of that. And that's what started my career. I had a lot of ups and downs throughout that career, going up in age. I couldn't go to regular school because you were going on so many auditions. You had to go to a private school for kids that are in showbiz. And I eventually got to the point where puberty set in, and I got too big for little parts, and I was too little for big parts. And I didn't work for 5 years, but I paid this agent a salary every week for 5 years. And well, during that time, I did get a part in the show Oliver. I played the title role as Oliver in the Broadway musical Oliver at the Schubert Theater, the Martin Beck Theater, and the Imperial Theater. And I lasted 4 years on Broadway. But when that closed, I got to be too big. I said, let me go back to regular public school, and we'll see what happens when I graduate as a senior. Maybe I'll go back to seeing this agent. Well, Vietnam War was in full swing. 1972, they had the draft on TV. I turned 18. I got drafted into Vietnam at 72. And when I came back, I met a girl on the weekend, and then one thing led to another, and I never got back into the showbiz. Still being in the limelight, I volunteer. If anybody's doing a show, they need scenery built, I started doing that. I started making props. I started doing everything that my welding ability would be able to do for me. And that's how I kept my foot in the door so far. But I never got back to acting, so to speak, and going on auditions and commercials. But during my reign, I made Uncle Ben's Converted Rice, Jell-O pudding. I made Sunbeam bread commercials. I performed with Craig Stevens and Alexis Smith. He was the TV's Peter Gunn. I did a show with him that later became a big movie. They made the movie from the show. It was called Critics' Choice. And the lead was Lucille Ball and Bob Hope, and I played the son in the stage version of that movie. So I had a lot of fun with my professional career. And it kind of never leaves you. It kind of always, I always check the papers. We always try to go back to Broadway to see shows. I met a lot of people, all the big stars at that time, because we went out to California. I traveled and I toured the whole United States while I was age 11 for a year, including Canada. Every state in the United States and Canada, the show went on tour, and we circled the entire United States and Canada. My my father came to this country, and I said he only could speak 5 words. They were immigrants. They came here as refugees right after World War II. They came to this country in 1949, and he knew 5 words. I look for words. I look for a job. That's all my father knew. I look for a job. And he got a job. And at that time, I was still acting, so I didn't really watch what he was doing. But when I hit that spot where I wasn't doing anything, I would go to help him. And I told you, it was that spark when I was in his shop, and he said, hold these 2 pieces of metal while I weld it, and I held it, I wasn't afraid. And when I held it in my hand, I looked down, I said, this became one piece. That hit my mind that that's what I want to do. I want to be able to take something, put it together, and it can become one piece. And whether it's an I-beam, a piece of pipe, or a piece of flat bar, whatever it is, the thrill of being able to join those together and make one piece out of it, that's what got me started, and I wanted to do that. And my father was against that from the beginning. He wanted me to be a TV repairman, be a barber, work easier in your life, not like him with dirty hands and ripped up clothes and burns all over him. But once that got in your mind, it didn't get out. And it was like burning a hole in my brain that I wanted to do that. And it was a combination. When he welded it, I smelled the smoke, I felt the sparks, I felt the heat. I said, this is something it just got to be special for me. And it brings tears to my eyes because I remember those days very vividly, that's what I wanted to do. And I went to a trade school in Manhattan against my father's wishes, without him knowing. He'd leave for work. I'd make sure his car cleared the driveway. I'd load my welding helmet in my bag, and I'd run to the subway to go to New York to go to school and hurry up, get home before he did, so he didn't see this. And I passed a test when I was 16 or 17. I passed a test for state certification for New York, but they couldn't give me a license because I had to be over 18. The military sent me to welding schools all across the country and must have spent thousands of dollars in training for me. I wound up welding on nuclear submarines. I wound up welding on destroyers, aircraft carriers through my military career. So that also formulated it. And then when I got out of the service, I went to look for a job. All I knew was the welding passion. I got a job as a welder. And I worked for this one company for 41 years. I never forget when I first came out of the service and I was doing scenery for local community theater groups, and it was a children's group, and I went to see one of their shows. And they just did the show, they had no scenery, nothing, and it was wonderful. The next show they did, I contacted that director, said, I want to help you. I'll make some scenery for you. The woman said, great. They put it up. They did another show, it was great. One kid walked up to me and said, Mr. Sevcenko, I want to thank you. I said, what? I just made a couple of scenery for you. You made me feel proud to be in this show because what you did. I never forgot that to this day. That was 35 years ago. But it impacted me. That what I did with my hands helped this little girl feel proud that she was in that show. You might call me too passionate. I'm not embarrassed because I get emotional, I cry, because they mean so much to me. That little girl got me on the road to say, I want to affect people's lives that much. I want to be able to say, he was a great guy. As time went on, I bought my own equipment, and I was working in my garage in my house. I didn't have a building to work in. And we had 2 children, and they would just go to sleep, and I'm out in the garage 20 feet away, grinding and banging. And one night, the smoke from the garage, from the welding, got into the exhaust and it went through the house. And my wife opens the door. "Thanks for waking everybody up, and the house smells from welding." I said, "I got to build my own little building so I can go out there and work and not have to worry about having that." So I have my own shop. It's on my property. I'm 100 feet away from the house, fully contained, and I can go out there and I have heat out there and I could just work any hours of the day and night that I would want. And while I was working, I would go out in my shop and I would work till 12, 1 o'clock in the morning, and then realize, hey, I got to get up at 5 to leave the house at 6 to be on the job at 7. I better get some sleep. Well, the process is, what can I use to create something? And knowing welding so well after 41 years and working in industrial applications, and believe me, there were so many opportunities that arose in the factory that I worked at that you can't do that. Well, that gave me to show you, yeah, I can do that. And that's what trained me to not to be afraid to use different materials. And when I seen a spark plug, and I would make these motorcycle spark plugs, I said, I think I could weld that. And boom, I tried it and it worked. To use masonry nails, the angular shaped nails, I think I can use that, and it worked. Right now I'm creating a lot of work with spoons and forks and knives, and they're very thin, but if you use the right rod, you use the right temperature, and you know how to apply it. Right now I'm making birds out of spoons. I'm making guitar guys out of forks and spoons that they're playing the guitar. And it's just, your imagination takes you, and then I go in my shop and I look around, okay, what do I have? What can I do? what do I have laying around? So I'll pick up something and I'll just think, hey, if I could create, and it's just a matter of standing. And once it starts, you can't stop. I'd like to do something for them. They've been really good to me. The Ocean County Library has been good to me. They were receptive when I walked in the door. They were smiles on their faces. They were eager to see me. They didn't say, hey, we got no time for you. We're here where people want to get books. But when I walked in, I was greeted with staff that was welcoming me in. And they started to see what I was presenting. So I said, I want to do something to give my gift back to them. So I went to my shop and I happened to see a ring that I had made for something laying on the floor. I said, that's my ring. So then I appropriately said, all right, there's a sailing ship. I could kind of make it all in perspective. And what am I going to do for waves? I was actually going to cut pieces of metal and weld them. And I said, oh, I have this wire. Everything just happens to be, you're looking around and you say, that could be it. And sometimes, until I get to that point, I can't sleep at night. I'll be laying in bed and my mind is working. What am I going to do? How am I going to make those waves? And then all of a sudden, oh, I got wire. Yeah, that's it. And then I can actually get calm that I could fall asleep because I have something figured out. So that's how the library, thing came about. And it was just a matter of once I got started, I couldn't stop. And I'm in my shop and I got the sailboat. I said, well, how am I going to make the books? And I'm looking. I said, okay, I'll just bend the metal in the shape of the pages. I kind of made like the thickness. If you look really carefully, you'll see like there's a second page and how one page lays on another. I have that in there. The tools that I had laying around were meant to show you the tools you need for learning is reading books. And from my own, and how that started to me was my son, who was struggling going through middle school and elementary school, got the spark from his teacher to read. And he read and read and read. And he's so successful today strictly because he's a good reader and he loves to read. So to me, when I started putting the tools of learning in that book, and I happened to be going through a yard sale and I seen a lock and I said, that could represent how your mind can unlock itself to the potential that you have is a lock. And then when I saw spark plugs, I said, well, that sparks your, and these things just come to me. There's no method how you get that. You just have to see it and look at beyond that and say, yeah, spark plugs can spark your, that's their function. They spark. And that's why I welded spark plugs in it. And then the chain. I had a piece of chain laying on the floor of my shop, and I said, you know what? When you learn, you bridge, it's like a chain. You put things together, and that's how you get a good knowledge of things, and you hooking them all together like a chain link. So that's why those items that I put in there are not just thrown in there. Everything I put in there was there for a reason. A screw. You're going to screw down. You're going to nail down what you want to be in life because you learned it, you read it, you understand. So every object in my sculptures do have a particular meaning for me. And it's just a matter of looking at it and letting your mind just go there. Topic was the importance of pollinators. Ocean County Park System had a contest for people come up with a painting or a sculpture about the importance of how pollinators. So I started thinking, pollinators pollinate food. We need that in this world to live. Without pollinators, we're not going to have any fruit. Flowers won't bloom into fruit. We're going to die. We need pollinators. So I said, pollinators. Fruit, well, you need knives and forks to cut up stuff to eat it, so that's appropriate with a pollinator. And I started creating the hummingbirds and pollinator birds out of the forks and knives and spoons. And then I said, well, how am I going to make a base for this? Well, let's use a frying pan. You cook food, and it sounds kind of simple, but that's exactly how it works. And I said, let me get a frying pan because forks and knives belong with food, belong to be cooked in a frying. Everything kind of came together, and I created that sculpture, the importance of pollinators, in a frying pan with forks, knives, and spoons that we need to eat with so we can live and survive on this planet. That was a first place award winner, state of New Jersey in 2017, all made out of nails. And just one day I said, I like the Harley Davidson eagle. I like the shape of the eagle. And I said, let me just try to so welded all the nails, and you use a brazing technique that gives you that gold finish. And once it was welded flat, I just heated and bent it up in the shape of a wing. And I made, at first I just had no legs and feet on it. It was just a bird. It had no place to stand. And again, Ocean County Park had a contest, make a sculpture. And I said, now I have an opportunity to give it meaning. I said, well, when a bird lands on a nest, so I made the bird, I made the nest all out of nails. I even put some nails in it, like to represent like eggs and stuff in it. And the moment the bird is landing, that moment that she sets on the nest, that was how I created that moment. The hand one was a passion of mine to show you that a woman would feel safety in a hand that's bigger than her. It's bigger than life. She feels comfortable. The look on her face is that comforting look that she's okay. My mind was she's a single woman struggling, but she's okay. She has someone holding her in the palm of his hand or her hand to watch over her, and she in turn is comforting her little baby, to show you how it just trickles down one to another to another. And that just came out of nowhere. That just came out of Ocean County Park. Said, we're doing another sculpture. And I said, what am I going to do? And I just started thinking of, it could have been from a movie I was watching that night of a single woman struggling. And what would make her feel comfortable? Well, yeah, if you had someone overseeing you, like the movie, someone to watch over me. Those titles of movies that come to me and they inspire me. Right now, I'm doing everything called arc welding. And again, the reason I say that's when I was working 41 years, my company did not have a lot of resources. They gave you an arc welder. Make it work. I said, you can't do this. Make it work. That's all we got. You got to get the job done. All the pressure's on you, get it done. So I learned to manipulate that stick rod so many different ways. I could weld a spoon with a stick rod. Now, anybody who's going to hear this who knows will say, that's impossible, you can't do that. I was on another job site one time, and the guy, I showed the guy 2 pieces of pipe. He says, you can't weld that. You have to heal. There's a technique called heliarc, using high frequency electric with a filler rod. You really control your heat. And I've done that, but I said, I bet you I can arc weld that. He says, if you can arc weld that, I can't believe you got to show me. He came with me, and he goes, wow, I can't believe. See, that's the thrill, to be able to do something that you can't do. So all my sculptures, because in my own shop at home, I don't have a lot of resources. I don't have soldering guns. I just have a cutting torch and a stick welder. And I could do all these things with a stick welder, using different rods and knowing what different rods can do, regulating your heat on the machine, which is very elementary. It's just a toggle switch that goes down to a different heat range, but the technique, and that's something that I learned over 41 years, that I can do everything with stick welding. But the Eagle was made when I was still working. They had brazing torches, they're called, where you put this white powder flux, you heat the thing up, you have a special brass rod that melts. It melts on everything, and when it cools and you clean it off, it looks like gold, like the outline of the wings. And that was done at that time. But if I was to make another one today, I'd probably just arc weld it, because it's faster, and that's the only resources that I have. So it is unique that I've been able to do these things strictly with using one machine, one process. And anybody who starts welding, that's the first thing they learn with, was a stick rod. And you learn on that, and when you learn that, then you go into the other techniques of heliarc, aluminum welding, high frequency welding. There's so many different ways of welding, but for me, average person who wants to maybe get into this kind of stuff, you can buy a little welding machine. You can get it from Lowe's, Home Depot, and you can arc weld in your garage. And I always wanted people to see that you can do that, so maybe they would feel, hey, if I get a machine and I can maybe do these things as well, not having to buy all these specified machines to do certain things. Just have a stick welder, that's it. It evolved into creating a community project where people would sign up, and we would come up with a plan. My original plan is for the pine cone for the Ocean County Library in Jackson, because Jackson's logo seal is pine trees. Pine trees in my own yard. When I look out the window, loaded with pine cones. And I took one down, and I started taking the petals and saying, if we could make, different people would come in and everybody would make a petal. And we would make it, we'll come up with a size, and everybody would have a piece and bending it, whether they want to shape it, whatever they want to do to make it. Every person that was involved in it could sign their name. They would engrave their name in it. We would make it out of stainless steel, so it would never rust, it would never change its color or shape. And the whole people would be able to get excited to say they had a part in it. Maybe I'm a secretary in a dentist's office, but you know what? I did something that's sitting out there in the town that I had a part in doing. And the thrill of them coming back year after year to say, it's still there, it's still there. I never went to college. I graduated high school, got drafted, fell in love, got a job, worked all my life. All I have is 2 hands. It is emotional to me, and I'm sorry. But if I could do something with these 2 hands, to make a mark on somebody's world, to help somebody, whether it be a senior citizen in a wheelchair, or whether it be making a sculpture where somebody says, wow, I really like that. I can say, maybe I don't have the education, but I got my hands. And I remember when my father was near the end of his life, I would take him on jobs with me, because he taught me. And he once had a stroke, and he couldn't use his functions too much. And he said to me, if I can't use my hands, he's done. So that kind of stuck with me, that if these two hands, maybe I didn't get an associate's degree, I didn't go to college, but if I could do the same with these hands, that's always been a big driving force behind me, that maybe I could just use my hands, the talent that I was given in these hands to change someone's life. That's the kick for me. And maybe this video will spark somebody to say, hey, you know what? I think I'm going to try to do what this guy talks about. I think I'm going to try to express myself.
Support public libraries. Like, share, and subscribe for more great videos.